Hello and welcome into the Worst Wrestling Podcast.
Oopsie, the worst rapper alive. Oops. Yeah. Big Mac's back on the mic like oops. Back on the horse, still jumping through hoops. The missing link in pink, I don't lip sync. Just to be clear, choking isn't my kink, but I do it anyway sometimes, I guess. Gotta laugh now, die later in my times of stress. I'm blessed, feeling good, charged up like a Hadouken.
Welcome back to another edition of the Worst Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Jack Lucenay. I've got my custom shirt that I just went and had made today because this Monday I am going to WWE Monday Night Raw for the very first time. I'm going to be seeing Sami Zayn defend his Intercontinental Championship against his training partner, coach, mentor, Chad Gable. And I'm very excited. Also, Sheamus going to return in Montreal this Monday. So, yeah, I'm getting ready. I'm super excited. But before we get there, I had to roll out the Worst Wrestling Podcast. I had a bunch of shit going on today, so I could not do the, elaborate pre-recorded version. So I decided, hey, we'll hit a live show today. So if you guys want to drop some questions in the comments, feel free. I'll get them to them during the show. For right now, we're going to be doing WrestleMania recap, a very short, brief recap about AEW versus CM Punk, because I think that one's been beat to death. I want to highlight some positivity for AEW, you guys. So we're going to actually look at AEW Dynasty coming up, which I'm pretty excited about. And then, like I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more about going to Monday Night Raw, which I'll be doing this Monday, which I'm super excited about. So, before we get into everything, as always, guys, this is a comedy fuel, grassroots, fan-driven wrestling podcast, and I want to be the Santina Marella of the wrestling podcast out there. I want to be king of the jobbers, worst of the worst. But to do that, I actually need the best of the best. I need your help out there. I want to hear from you guys. I need you guys to be my EVPs. And I will actually listen to your ideas on like a certain Mr. Owner of a company. If you have any ideas or questions for the show, you can hit me up on Twitter at Jack Lucenay. If you prefer something a little less public, more low-key, just send an email to worstsportschannel@gmail.com. So, real quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap WrestleMania, the two nights that were. Now that the dust has settled, we've had some time to marinate. And what I did was I actually pulled Uncle Dave's star reviews, Mr. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And I thought it would be fun to just compare my own star rating, I guess. So, I used his same system, essentially. My opinion of the match versus what he thought of it. I thought would be a fun little comparison. Old Uncle Dave, a little cranky these days, especially. And so we start off with night one of WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley defending against Becky Lynch. And I'm actually very excited because I'm thinking Rhea Ripley and Judgment Day. High possibility I'll be seeing them on Monday Night Raw, so that should be cool. But yeah, Rhea Ripley defends against Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title. 4.5 stars from Mr. Meltzer. I have to agree with him. We were pretty lock sync for the first couple matches. Tag team ladder match that saw Jesus Christ. I was about to say Austin Waller and Grayson Theory just totally dog fuck their names. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, they were the ones that surprisingly came down with the tag team championships. Shout out to Jorge Edwards of Inside Squared Circle. I had him on for the WrestleMania preview show, and he actually had said to me, like, I actually think that Waller and Theory could win this match. So he predicted that. Shout out to that guy. He was an awesome guest on the show. So was Keith Fleming, also of Inside Squared Circle, and SC Romero at the PPR show. He does Total Apex Sports, so check out those guys as well because they do great work. But yes, the tag team ladder match, and then Awesome Truth obviously won the Raw tag team championships. Old Uncle Dave gave this one 4.25 star. Pretty much agree with him on here. And this is kind of where we start to deviate. So it's Rey and Andrade defeating Dominic and Santos Escobar, Dominic Mysterio and then Santos Escobar. So he had 3.75 star for this match. I had 3. I had a little bit less. I feel like I came away disappointed, particularly from this match, because the way I thought it was setting up kind of was, Andrade could potentially turn on Rey Mysterio, or, they were going to do some kind of thing to ultimately give Dom the win back from last year's WrestleMania, getting his butt whipped. But no, Rey pulled the whole Hulk Hogan card, went over Rey and Andrade. There was no real guesswork or kind of any swerves to this match. So yeah, for me, I had it 3 stars. And then this one, hysterically, Jay and Jimmy Uso, he gave this 3/4 star. This is like that scene in The Longest Yard when Caretaker is looking up his star rating and he's like, 1/2 star? I'm only 1/2 star. Jay and Jimmy had to be looking up Uncle Dave's rating. He's like, 3/4 star? What the fuck is this shit? Even though it wasn't a great match, I mean, I had it at 2.5, which I thought was pretty low, but 3/4 star, I thought that was hilarious. Like, no, you guys don't even get a star. Go fuck yourselves. And then Jade, Bianca, Naomi defeating Damage Control. He had 2 star. I had 3.5. Honestly, I had 2 stars just for the fucking entrance. Like, what are you talking about? The gold entrance with Jade, Bianca, and Naomi. And like the match is what it is, but I've seen the complaints already as well online about Jade Cargill and like, oh, she's not working super long matches and she's doing squash matches. Like, yeah, they're building her up. And the fact that they've put her already in this tag team with Bianca Belair, where we can clearly see where that story is going, which is a money feud ultimately at some point between Bianca and Jade. Like, fuck yeah, count me in for that. What are you talking about? So I had this one a lot higher. And then Sami Zayn, my guy, El Generico, defeating Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. And Gunther, honestly, is like my favorite wrestler on the Raw roster right now in terms of just like his actual matches. Man, that guy is a fucking killer. So Sami Zayn defeating Gunther. I had 5 stars. This is where I feel like, this idea that he just like can't give 5-star matches out. This was a 5-star match. I don't know what the fuck else they had to do. He hit a fucking brainbuster, pulling and shit out from the old days to go over Gunther. He mentioned the Rocky storyline, even though people keep getting the story wrong. They keep calling it Rocky 4, which is not what it is. Rocky 4 is when Apollo Creed dies. Like, I'm sorry, Chad Gable's training Sammy. That's Rocky 3. When honestly, and even in that one, it's like not really the true story. It's kind of like a mix of both. It's like, because in Rocky 3, that's when Rocky is the champ and he gets soft from being the champ, gets his ass whipped by Clubber Lang, aka Mr. T, and then he has to go to Apollo Creed to be like, hey, I need you to train me to like actually know how to box, because I kind of never really did that. I just been, going on a hope and a prayer and Mickey booking me some fucking tomato soup cans to fight against. So yeah, I had this at 5 stars. And then the last one for the night, Rock and Roman, Cody and Seth, 4 stars from old Uncle Dave. I had 4.5 stars. I mean, we got 45 minutes out of The Rock at WrestleMania. Like, and I still have not gone back to like fully rewatch WrestleMania night 1 and 2, which is something I do plan on doing. But man, like this for a tag team match to set up what you already knew what was going to happen at night 2, for me was everything that I wanted from it. I had it at 4.5 stars. And then we get into night 2. And this is where I'm not sure. I'm going to assume, you guys, that for night 2, Drew McIntyre defeating Seth Rollins, because Uncle Dave gave this 3.5 stars. I'm assuming he's not counting the cash in. I have to assume that he is only talking about the match bell to bell. But like, what the fuck is that? This is pro wrestling. I'm counting the cash in, obviously. And, you know, with that said, for me, I had it at 4.5 stars because of the cash in. Because, yeah, I think, and this is where it's like I would agree with him, where it's like if you had just had that match bell to bell with just Drew McIntyre going over, taunting CM Punk after, and he just walks off with the belt, and that had been the end of it, I could see 3.5 stars. Me personally, I thought it was a better match than that. I would have probably had even 4 stars. I think I'm a little more generous that way. But man, with the cash in, are you fucking kidding me? You could even said 5 with the cash in, and I wouldn't have blamed you. But because of like the actual match that preceded it, I still had 4.5. And then Lashley, Street Profits defeating Final Testament, Cross, and AOP. He hated this one. He had it at 1 3/4 star. I loved it. I don't know. Maybe again, this is just like differences in styles and what you're looking for in your wrestling. Like the spots they were doing with the kendo sticks looked fucking brutal. I liked the spot with Bubba Ray as the guest referee where he pulls out the glasses like this, the old school glasses, once he's getting pushed around by Cross. And then he's doing the Dudleyville shit with Lashley and the Street Profits. So like I thought those were all great spots. Lashley and Street Profits went over. I had 3 stars. Not like I was like, oh, this is a fucking 5-star match. No, I had 3 stars. I just sometimes again I don't understand the hate when sometimes it's like, have you just been doing this for so long, Uncle Dave, that you just like I don't know, you're jaded to a degree, or is like have you just lost that part of you as a wrestling fan? Like, man, just the brutality with the kendo stick spots, the fun little spot with Bubba Ray. There were some other fun spots in this match. The personalities involved. I love how Cross is kind of leaning into this like Jesse Ventura shtick, and like because he kind of does that impersonation sometimes. I love that he's kind of leaning into that. So yeah, again, it's not like the greatest thing on earth, but it was fine. And then again, I feel like I just continually like had mostly higher ratings until the next one that we'll talk about. But before that, LA Knight. Yeah. Oh, I lost my hat there. Jesus Christ. LA Knight defeating AJ Styles, 3.5 stars. Did Dave Meltzer give? I had 4 stars. Honestly, I thought this was like one of LA Knight's best matches of his career, which is again kind of a kudos to AJ Styles because he can literally pull a best match of career out of damn near anybody. I feel like he could wrestle a fucking bag of potatoes out there. You'd be like, oh, the bag of potatoes just had the best match of its career. That's how fucking good AJ Styles is. And, you know, we'll get to it later, but I'm pretty sure I had mentioned either Finn Balor or AJ Styles as potential next opponents for Cody Rhodes. They've also kind of set it up with Jey Uso. Seems like they're going the route of, you know, Cody's going to be the fighting champion, raw bullshit. Again, I wanted Cody to finish the story. What I don't want is this raw bullshit to just go on for a whole year up till WrestleMania next year. I'm not as into that. I got to be perfectly honest. Like, it'll be fine. I'm hoping Cody loses that belt sooner rather than later. And what I mean by that is either a major pay-per-view that they decide is big enough that they want to do that pop between now and then, or at SummerSlam. I want to see Cody actually, like, I want to see the belt hot potato a little bit. I don't want to see Cody versus The Rock either, which I know has been kind of bounded about because of the story coming out of WrestleMania. I'd be fine with that even being non-title or for his stupid People's Championship at WrestleMania. Like, with Roman having held the title for 4 fucking years, at this point, I want to see some hot potato with the title. I would even love to see somebody lose it on a Monday Night Raw. Like, I cannot remember the last time that the actual main world title changed hands on a regular fucking show. Like, that would be wild to me. So yeah, I mean, Elliot getting off track there. Logan Paul defeating Kevin Owens and Randall Orton for the U.S. title. Dave had this one at 4.25 star, which I thought was weird because I would have figured he would have had this lower. I had it lower. For me, this was just kind of like a paint by numbers match a little bit. Maybe I set myself up for disappointment because not that I necessarily I don't even care that Logan Paul like ended up winning. In my mind, I guess I set myself up of like there's gonna be like an all-time RKO moment, like one that would be, close to or even topping like the Seth Rollins one, which is honestly one. I think that one even more than like the Evan Bourne one, which is fucking sick when he does the shooting star and Randy hits him with the RKO, which I think probably the best one. But even more so than that one, the one with Rollins at WrestleMania, where he basically uses Seth's own finishing move to pop him up and hit him with the RKO. Like the timing, the way Seth was able to like get the actual bounce and the release and just everything about that was fucking picture perfect. And to me, like that's my favorite RKO. So I guess in my mind, I kind of like built up like, okay, it might not be that good, but I definitely thought they were going to do some shit love like Logan Paul's going for a fucking moonsault off the ropes or something, and Randy somehow sneaks under and hits an RKO or so. Like, again, I think I just set myself up, and maybe that's why I didn't like it as much. And the actual match itself was fine. Also, I will say, I think this is just maybe, devil in the details too of like, I was tired, legitimately. Like, I stayed up really late, obviously, for night one, and I was doing my best to stay up through night two. And it's like by the time we got to Logan Paul versus KO versus Randy Orton, I was like, fuck, like starting to feel the fatigue of the two nights, I think. So, and I can't even imagine like if you're there live, how that can play into, whether a crowd feels hot or dead for certain matches, especially at WrestleMania in an open environment like that. And again, where it's so long. So maybe that's part of what played into it, but it's not like I thought this was a bad match by any stretch. I don't think the thing of WrestleMania to me is like there wasn't any match that I felt was bad. That I was like, oh, this was like, why was it like, is the closest one, I guess you could say, of like the bad matches felt like they should be like, they could have been a main event on a SmackDown or something. And it's like, if a main event on a SmackDown is normally a pretty good match. So if you're telling me like, excuse me, if you're telling me that like the mid card of WrestleMania was like main event level feeling SmackDown to Raw matches, and then like obviously they blew the fuck out of it for like the main events, like yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. Bailey defeating Io Sky for the SmackDown Women's title. Finally, Uncle Dave and I agreed again, 4.5 stars. And then finally, and I don't want to skip over, I feel like Bailey and Io Sky, I was about to do it to them too, of like they just have been getting like disrespect of like, almost skipped over of like the build itself was kind of skipped over, the match itself, even, and it was all great. That's the crazy part. It's like, it's not that they did anything wrong or even bad. They were doing great work. The promo work and the stuff with Bailey of when she did like drop that she could understand Japanese and the betrayal. I thought all of that was brilliant. I thought the way that they actually kept them separate and didn't have them doing a bunch of tacky shit between, the build to WrestleMania, and they just kind of had damage control looking really strong. I thought that was great. I was surprised that Bailey went over, to be perfectly honest. I thought setting up damage control to keep the tag team titles and lose to Jade Bianca and Naomi. I thought that was pretty much a setup to keep damage control whole in the sense of keeping all of their titles intact. So I really thought Io Sky was going over. And so again, maybe that part of the smart mark in me that really thought Io was going over, I was surprised genuinely that Bayley won. And so we basically both agree it was 4.5 stars, but like I love Bayley. She's always been one of my favorites on the women's roster. I love her work on the mic and the ring. Everything about Bayley, and I think the evolution of her character, more importantly than anything, the fact that she went from, again, like we all remember the hugger, and even she'll joke about that, to where she's at now. It's like completely night and day. So she's, to me, I feel like Bayley is the most underrated still of the 4 horsewomen between Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, and Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Moné. All right. And finally, the main event. This is where, honestly, this is where Uncle Dave just pissed me the fuck off. Because Cody Rhodes defeating Roman Reigns for the world heavyweight, the Universal World Heavyweight title, whatever the fuck long ass name it had before. Now it's just WWE Championship. He had it at 4 3/4 stars. Why? Why 4 3/4? You couldn't just, like, it's like, you know what you're doing. You're being antagonistic at that point. And that's where it's like, it feels disingenuous. And maybe that's just my opinion of it. Maybe that's how I read into it. But it's like, if you were going to give something 4.75, round up, like, what the actual fuck are you doing? And I had it at 5 stars. Hell, I had it at 6 stars, 7 star, 8 star, 9 star, whatever the fuck stars you want to give this. This was the absolute tits. The only thing that could have made this better was if instead of the gong, we got the glass break. And I knew that it was going to come out of whatever the case was, that there was some kind of contingency or reason or whatever, that unfortunately Stone Cold couldn't make it. Man, I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed when I saw that it was numbers, that it was money. It seemed like it was whatever negotiation was going on, like, didn't happen fast enough or in time, or like wasn't like what didn't move the needle for Austin to make the trip or whatever. And so I guess they decided to go with the backup plan of Taker, who had been wanting to, and I am totally fine with it. And I'll tell you for multiple reasons. Number one, it's like, if you were going to tell me, Jack, at WrestleMania, we can have one of 2 sounds, I'd be like, well, glass break. And they'd be like, oh, unfortunately, glass break is not going to be one for XYZ reason. We can't get glass break. I'd be like, oh, well, gong. Like, obviously, like, if it's not glass break at WrestleMania, it's gong. And the tie-in of, obviously, Undertaker and The Rock also have had their feuds in the past, but like the more important tie-in is Undertaker's relationship to The Rock's family, the feuds that he had not only with The Rock but with Rikishi in the past, throwing his ass off the cell, but obviously also losing to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, which would stick in his craw and give him a reason to go out of his way to fuck over Roman Reigns, which really felt like, that was the one sticking point of, like, if it was going to be Stone Cold, there was not really going to be a reason for it to happen. This was going to be pure wrestling booking 101, nostalgia overload. We don't give a shit what the fucking reasoning is. All we know is Rock and Austin were big rivals back in the day, and Austin would love to fuck over The Rock. And that's enough to go out there and basically cost Roman Reigns the title, and everybody would love that. But the actual, like, story, again, of Undertaker's involvement in terms of, again, losing to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, his also prior feuds with The Rock and Rikishi and the whole entire family. And then talking about it from a real life perspective also, the Undertaker's just willingness to participate in the event, wanting to be involved with wrestling in some aspect, wanting to be involved with the fans, just having that feeling of missing that, which obviously very understandable when you've done that for over 2 decades of your life. Fucking Taker, you're talking about 30-40 years, like, career, like, literally, like, to me, the greatest wrestling character that has ever existed. Like, he's literally the Undertaker. Like, come on now. So again, that was my big sticking point of like 4 3/4 stars, just like a big fuck you. Like, just put 5-star. Come on now. And then that would all lead into obviously the post WrestleMania week, which I got to tell you, frankly, I'm with a lot of the people out there that it's been a little bit disappointing. I think there was a time in the back in the day when we were spoiled with like the Raws after Mania. Especially, I feel like they should bring back like doing the draft like the night after, because I remember I think the coolest one was the one where Triple H was like getting drafted to SmackDown. And then they had that random match where it was like Triple H versus Eddie Guerrero, like, and they just had a fucking banger. And then Triple H like never actually went over to SmackDown, but like just the idea of it, and like just setting up that main event and just like doing things that were, fucking like surprising and just like kind of out of the blue. Whereas this just kind of felt like, big wheel keeps on turning, proud Cody keeps on burning, cutting his little fucking promos. And again, I'm with the people online that are like, hey, this babyface shtick from Cody is gonna wear thin in about 3 to 6 months if he's just fucking looking like he's gonna be hanging on to that title for anything more than like even a year feels long to me. Like, after we just had Roman Reigns for like 4 years, like, I don't want anybody to have that belt for longer than 6 months right now. So again, I'm hoping they hot potato it. And this isn't to say like get the belt off Cody Rhodes in any way, shape, or form. I don't want it to be misconstrued in that way either. I'm a huge Cody Rhodes fan. I want multiple Cody Rhodes title reigns. I want Cody Rhodes to be able to say, I'm a 2-time, 3-time, 4-time, 5-time WWE champion. You can't do that if you don't lose the fucking belt, though. So again, need to see some hot potatoing with this belt. This was one aspect also of when I'm watching Monday Night Raw. So I was watching Raw and SmackDown earlier today to kind of get notes for the week of WrestleMania. And the funniest thing of like, I get the time crunchers out there that are like, complain where it's like WWE can have like a whole hour of television programming without a single wrestling match, because that's exactly what happened on Monday Night Raw. Like, Triple H, Cody Rhodes, and The Rock, like that segment literally took 44 minutes from like opening to close. Like, I'm looking at the time on Hulu because that's where I watch it. 44 fucking minutes has gone by, and it's just that opening promo. And even on a 3-hour show, like, that feels long as fuck. Like, that is one aspect of AEW that I would like to highlight as a positive aspect, because they've been obviously been taking it all fucking week. You'll never go 45 minutes without a wrestling match watching AEW. And then even after all that, it's like, oh, okay, well, we got highlights and then Judgment Day, and it's like finally, like, the highlight of the show is Judgment Day. All rise for the Judgment Day, and Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley hold up their titles, and then R-Truth sneaks in the middle to hold up the tag team title, and it leads to a match where it ends up being Awesome Truth and a guy you can't see versus Judgment Day. And even you're talking about, they had a match and John Cena came out for his spot and all of this. And again, the timer went from like 15:36 to like 1:02. And it was basically over. So you're talking about like an hour, and your first match is not even really a match. It's more of like a 2 to 3 minute segment where you're going to have John Cena run in and fuck up the Judgment Day. So I do get the lamentations and frustrations with WWE when it comes to that. But, it's funny. My boy, my buddy Ryan, he's my best friend. He was one of the best men at my wedding. Him and my other best friend Andrew, basically the two of them. And he asked me straight up. I'm just gonna read this. I'm going pretty hard into wrestling again since WrestleMania, but now I'm looking at the AEW roster. what am I doing here? I love the Rhodes family connection. Obviously, I love the bloodline stuff. I'm just wondering, what's better, WWE or AEW? When you ask that question in this landscape, holy fuck, you're asking for a mess. But I told him, I was like, so that's an interesting question to ask, actually. I think most fans decide whether they like AEW more or WWE more. I like them the same because to me, it's apples and oranges, even though it's wrestling. Right now, technically, you could say AEW is in a down period, even though they have a stacked roster. The main difference is match style, work rate. You'll notice they're faster, more moves, bigger risk in AEW. And they also have a lot more of blood and that kind of stuff. But it lacks the theatricality at times of WWE. So, like, it's great to watch 10 matches with 20 guys that just beat the hell out of each other. And there's like no real story to sink your teeth into. Or, you have the bloodline story that's been going on for 4 years. You got Cody's story, been going on for 2 years. So I almost compare it to like WWE is the NFL, and AEW right now is more like arena football, which is like a more up tempo, faster paced, different style of football. And so, like, even though it's technically the same sport, to me, it's not the exact same thing. And AEW, especially, like the way it was sold to us and presented, is supposed to be more sports representative. It's supposed to be why they have win-loss records. They just basically failed at booking that properly, so that it's pretty meaningless now. And the idea is that AEW is supposed to be for like hardcore pro wrestling fans, and WWE is still sports entertainment, more geared for a general audience. But lately, WWE's have been kicking the shit out of AEW because their matches have been getting better and better because you got guys like fucking Gunther, and they've got the work rate guys like fucking I love New Catch Republic, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bates. Like they fucking crush. Like AJ Styles and Finn Balor, what you can't talk about their work rate. Those are two of the best wrestlers in the entire world. They dominated the indie scenes before they even got to fucking NXT and then up through WWE. So it's like whatever. And then the last thing I said was like, unfortunately, AEW is a bunch of amazing talent that is being led by a geek from the message boards using daddy's money to float the company and book it like shit. So it's kind of still piling on AEW. And it's because, again, it's like, CM Punk, who is showing up to screw over Drew McIntyre on Monday Night Raw, is then the biggest talking point on AEW on Wednesday. So, I mean, I'll get to that in a second. Just real quickly, obviously, I wanted to talk about the Bloodline story because while that has been probably the best story in wrestling, arguably ever told, and has been going on for like 4 years now, I think I'm over it. I'm sorry. I think I jumped the shark. I'm not in. I'm not in on Solo Sikoa as like leading the even if you're telling me like, okay, this is going to lead to like Roman Reigns coming back and they're going to do a bloodline civil war. I've seen some screenshots online of like Roman and the Usos reunite and they bring in the honorary Us Sami Zayn against like a new version of the blood. It's like, as soon as you do that, to me, you're watering down the original storyline of the bloodline. If you have a new bloodline, as soon as you even say the words new bloodline, that story's cooked. And frankly, I would rather just see them move on entirely to like just something completely different. If you had brought in Tama Tonga and like got it's like if you had brought in Tama Tonga, I almost would have preferred if you brought in Tama Tonga and you kind of brought slowly Jey Uso back to the fold. Rather than going this route of kicking Jimmy out, I think you bring in Tama Tonga, and you slowly try and start bringing Jay back to full, and it kind of almost works because again, Jay kind of won that fatal 4-way where now he's going to have like the title opportunity. You have him lose that title opportunity, maybe lose a couple more title opportunities, and the more those losses start piling up, the more the allure of going back to the bloodline starts to become irresistible, right? Especially if they're over there kind of being like, hey, come back to us. And if you kind of slowly build back up the bloodline to have Roman maybe come back. The only problem with that is like then once Roman comes back, it's like, well, what's the motivation? Because it's like, do you have him go for one of the titles? Does he go after Cody? You know, and I think they should pull the trigger on, if you're going to say to me, and again, this is more me as a writer right now, this is totally subjective, projecting, pulling this straight out of my ass and my thoughts. If I was doing this story, I would basically set it up to have The Rock versus Roman sooner rather than later, because I think you start having these pieces again of like behind where it's like Tama Tonga's coming in, and you're having the influence of bringing Jey Uso back, and you eventually have Jey Uso come back in, a reunited and strengthened bloodline, but missing that actual leader figure. And then you have The Rock return first and start kind of being the de facto, and then have Roman Reigns return after and be like, hey, this is my, and then again, now The Rock having to step out of the way and capitulate, where he's already done that at WrestleMania. It's like, well, now he's like, well, you lost at WrestleMania, Roman. You lost the championship. So that makes us equal now. And obviously that would not stick. That would not stick well with Roman. And so you could tease which way even the bloodline is going to side. Are they going to side with The Rock? Are they going to side with Roman? Which way is that going to kind of go out? And you build that feud to me of The Rock versus Roman Reigns for head of the table, and you do it sooner rather than later. Whether you want to build it all the way to WrestleMania, I think that would be a little more difficult. Me personally, I would be trying to fast track this to SummerSlam. And I think that's where you have to have, if your idea is that you're gonna have Roman Reigns turn face, then you have him come back to reclaim head of the table, and you have the bloodline ultimately turn on him to side with The Rock. And because that's obviously like, that's always been kind of Roman's story of like the people that he trusts and loves most turn on him. And by doing that, you know, you force him to almost revisit his entire character. And I think that starts with going back to Seth, because he would then have to kind of go back to Seth and be like, hey, we have these original wounds that we need to heal. For me to be able to move on from what the bloodline did to me, to be able to take them apart, to disassemble what I created, I need to be able to move on emotionally from the trauma of being betrayed, so that that's not pulling away my focus, because obviously that's what cost him the title even at WrestleMania. So it's like, to me, the way that you build Roman into a face, the way that you cement the feud of Rock versus Roman, where you could have multiple matches, even, that's the way you do that. This shit with fucking, like, again, if they go old bloodline versus new bloodline, I'm going to be kind of out on that. So we've talked enough about WWE. Got a little bit of time here left. We're going to talk about AEW. And look, very quickly, I want to get it out of the way because I'm not going to pretend that I'm ignoring it. I had a segment. If you guys missed it, I did a short video with a fucking Young Bucks with clown faces. This is exactly what I thought this was. Not that I'm saying it was the Young Bucks' fault here, but this was a clown-ass move of showing the CM Punk footage. There was not anybody in the wrestling world. This was one of the most de facto uniting forces that I've seen in the wrestling community in the history of the IWC. And I don't think there's like, I know there's some people who are like, oh, man, AEW. That crowd, to me, I didn't even see them. They were so small that I literally did not even see the AEW defenders, all 3 or 4 of them, talking about how this was potentially a good idea to air the CM Punk footage after, especially several of your own roster members were like, hey, we just want to move the fuck on from this. And so everybody and your grandmother was telling you, don't fucking do it. They did it. And shocker to end all shockers, nobody liked it. Literally. I don't think this did a single positive thing for AEW. Frankly, the ratings boost, if you even want to call it that, was insignificant at best. I think they got 800,000 viewers or something. And I'm not the ratings tracker guy. I don't give a shit about that. I don't look at how full the audiences are in the building. Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't count their dollars. It's not my company, not my money. I don't fucking care. But what I do care about is the idea that this was supposed to be in storyline to justify the Young Bucks and FTR feud. Like, that's just a clusterfuck. You basically aired footage, like, you, again, I've heard this lamented on all of the fucking wrestling talk shows, all of the fucking dirt sheets out there. You made CM Punk the star of your show. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? And shout out to Nick Namath, aka Dolph Ziggler. I love the way that he presents his wrestling knowledge, and the way that he kind of looks at the business, because obviously, he's a guy that's kind of been a top guy, but, pushed out of that top guy spot, and, obviously very long career. I feel like he's knowledgeable, but more importantly, I don't ever feel like he's shitting on the business. He's always sounds positive. You know what I mean? Like, he's always looking for the positive. And even listening to him, it was frustrating watching and listening to him talk about this, because he literally said, I'm searching for the good. Even if you told me this was just a straight money ploy of, we're going to sell tickets and this is going to pop us we're going to make $100,000 off this. Even if that was the justification, there was no good to find, is basically what he said. And I totally agree with that. It was like the most nonsensical move in, like, this is finger poke of doom fucking shit. Like, we haven't seen wrestling booking this bad since late stage Vince McMahon era. So, I mean, AEW has been piled on plenty enough. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't have any more to say about fucking Tony Khan and CM Punk and all this bullshit. I want to focus on the positives. And so let's quickly review AEW Dynasty together, because this actually shapes up to be like a pretty exciting show. We'll go kind of top to bottom here. So, Swerve Strickland versus Samoa Joe for the AEW World Title, in what should be an absolute hell of a match. I loved, even though it didn't really make a ton of sense to me, like the whole thing of Swerve signing the contract in his blood definitely made this kind of a hot feud. I know there's a lot of people really excited. I think a lot of people are predicting that Swerve Strickland is going to win the AEW World Title, and I would be ecstatic for that to happen. I think he definitely deserves it, and I would love to see it on kind of like a homegrown talent from AEW, and I think Swerve Strickland, a very good representative for that right now. So yes, absolutely in favor of a Swerve Strickland title run. Brian Danielson versus Will Ospreay. this is one of those things of like, I feel like if you had a real long build to this would be like a generational match potentially. You could argue this would be one of the greatest matches of all time. I think no matter what, this is going to be one fucking hell of a match. So I'm extremely excited for Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay. Pac, excuse me, the bastard Pac versus Okada. That's going to be a fucking hell of a match. Thunder Rosa versus Tony Storm. That should be a good underrated match. Julia Hart versus Willow Nightingale. All right. This one, a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Adam Copeland teaming up with Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe to go against the House of Black. I'm hoping House of Black doesn't eat a loss here. I actually would like to see them go over. But you know, that one could swing either way. And the Young Bucks versus FTR, Revolution, Revival, whatever the fuck their name is now. Look, at the end of the day, regardless of how shitty this feud has been booked, when these two tag teams get into the ring together, they are two of the very best tag teams in the entire world, and this should be a hell of a match. So, you know, I'm assuming this will be all 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. I'm pretty excited for AEW Dynasty. In particular, like I said, I'm really excited for Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay on the retirement tour, and Swerve versus Joe. Yes, but I think Pac Okada, that one too. That looks like that could be a killer match. So, and just real quickly, I mean, I'll give my predictions. Swerve, Ospreay, Swerve, Ospreay, Okada. That's pretty locked in for me. Tony Storm, gonna go with Julia Hart. We're gonna go with actually Team Copeland here. It just feels like the chicanery and shenanigans that'll happen, and House of Black will have to eat another loss. And Bucks versus FTR. I'm gonna go with, the Bucks. Now they've set up this whole thing of like we lost because of CM Punk, which is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. But I'm gonna go with the Young Bucks actually winning this match. Yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much it for me. I'm going to Monday Night Raw on Monday to see Sami Zayn defend his Intercontinental Championship in Montreal. I'm very excited about that. I got my shirt custom made today. If you appreciate this channel, I would appreciate you if you guys could go super kick that subscribe button. It really helps with the algorithm bullshit. Drop a like in there. As always, I will catch all of you guys on the flip side.
Hell yeah. My positive contact results in affirmative impact. Never vulgarize on raps. I'm never primitive, but cannibalistic, vicious. Characteristics, hereditary potency, empathetic genes, yo. Aim at the HMCs at extraordinary speed. Seven of me is like slipping in razor blades and grease in your bare feet. I see your fucking colleagues misprise you very much to your dismay. So today, I can say you won't be running away. Hold your tail between your legs. I'm gonna advocate when you fail with low stakes. I'll take a hacksaw to you cockeyed, mumble rap, slack jaws. Leave you shredded on the side like some coleslaw. The double time with that clothesline from hell like Bradshaw. I'm toxic like septic shock. I die and breathe like